Chapter 176. Ronald, what's wrong? He asked strangely, why do you look worried? I had trouble sleeping last night. Ronald said dully. How could this be? I remember that every time you had insomnia, you would complain that my mattress was not comfortable enough. Harry said. I dreamed about my father last night and he told me that he had been bitten by a snake. Then I woke up crying. Ronald said, you know, in my heart, he is the most important person in the June 47th movement. Harry was silent for a moment, patted Ronald's shoulder, and then said comfortingly. Don't worry, Ronald, I don't think Mr. Dumbledore will let anything happen to your parents. Yes, he is the best professor in the world, and I believe in him. Ronald said. Harry continued to eat his omelette. He suddenly felt that Ronald seemed to have changed. Although they were still friends, he always felt that there was something between them. At this moment, Harry suddenly thought of what Dumbledore had said. We need to talk to Crow. Have you heard the recent rumors? No matter what, he is our friend, isn't it? Harry thought to himself, maybe he was right, they were friends, weren't they? Harry walked into the Hogwarts office again and knocked on Crow's door. Please come in. Crow's voice echoed through the room. Harry opened the door and saw Crow, who was writing quickly at his desk. You're here, Harry. Crow raised his head and said, you don't look well. What happened? It's nothing, it's just that I'm a little troubled and I don't know where to start. Harry sat down next to Crow's desk and looked at his parchment. Those rumors. Crow raised his eyebrows. Yes, I suspect this has something to do with Voldemort. Harry said. We heard about it before the holidays at Hogwarts, and Hermione, Ronald and I were very worried about you. I'm fine, really. Crow smiled and shook his head, I was just thinking about one thing. What? Harry asked. I don't know if we're doing the right thing now, Crow said softly. What do you mean? Harry asked. Should we go find Voldemort? I think we should capture him. Crow said, I've been following him for a long time. But he was always hiding behind countless Death Eaters. Why are we looking for Voldemort? Harry asked. To save the students of Slytherin College. Crow said. We have killed a number of Voldemort's minions, and he will definitely not give up. He will definitely find a way to get revenge. We can only stop him now and not let him hurt more wizards. So what are you going to do? Harry asked. I'm going to gather my companions and Muggle friends. Crow said, we're going to find Voldemort. Wait, Crow. Harry stopped him, you forgot, we are wizards. Yes, we are wizards 2.6. Crow muttered in a low voice, then raised his head and looked at Harry. But we can't hide forever. But you know, we must ensure our own safety and cannot act rashly. Harry said. Besides, didn't Mr. Dumbledore say that our spell can restrain Voldemort? Are you referring to the confinement spell? That will have no effect on Voldemort, and he is the Dark Lord. Crow said. Chapter 177. That's not what I meant. Harry hurriedly explained, I mean. We shouldn't go looking for Voldemort without permission, what if he escapes? We can go find those Muggle friends first. Crow said. In the beginning, wasn't it because we were wizards that they helped us? Harry hesitated. Okay, it's decided. Crow said, you go back first and wait for me to inform you. I'm not going back. Harry said. I'm going with you, Harry insisted, I think I've thought it through. Harry, you are not suitable to participate in dangerous missions. Crow frowned and said. Your current condition is very bad, and I'm afraid you'll get into trouble. It's okay, I can protect myself. Harry said seriously, don't worry, I won't mess around. Crow looked at Harry for a moment, and then he nodded. Well, since you insist on going, then go ahead. But you have to promise me that you will never leave within 5 meters of me. I don't want any accidents. Crow said seriously. Okay. Harry said happily. He knew that Crow had agreed to let him participate in the plan to find Voldemort. But what do we need to prepare, he asked, or do we go directly to Mr. Dumbledore? We can go to Mr. Principal for help. Crow said. We can use the school rules now, and I don't think the principal will refuse our request. Yeah, I almost forgot. Harry said, let's go quickly. So the two of them rushed to Dumbledore's office. They arrived at Dumbledore's office. "Welcome you two," Dumbledore stood up and said with a smile, "I wonder why you came to see me today." "Mr. Principal," Harry said excitedly, "that's it. We would like to ask for your help in the quest to find Voldemort." "Oh, Harry." Dumbledore smiled. "I know this may be dangerous for you, but you have to trust us. I believe in the strength of Mr. Dumbledore and all of you gentlemen." Crow said, however. "But what?" Harry asked. "I think we should try to avoid fighting," Crow said. "I think we should go on the defensive, like we did with the Death Eaters before." "This is a good idea," Harry said, "but I'm afraid we need your help. We need a powerful spell." "Oh, you actually want to use the wand of the Order of the Phoenix to cast the magic of the Goblet of Fire?" Dumbledore said in surprise, and then his eyes lit up. "Yes, I know some very powerful wizards. If they are willing to help you, that would be great." "Thank you," Harry said gratefully. "You're welcome," Dumbledore said, "but I think we need more help. After all, the Goblet of Fire is not stable and may be destroyed." "Mr. Dumbledore, you are right." Crow agreed, "That's why I need your help." "Of course, no problem," Dumbledore said cheerfully. "Thank you, Mr. Headmaster," Harry said excitedly. Chapter 178. Harry and Crow left Dumbledore's office, and Harry immediately told Ronald and Hermione the news. "Are you crazy?" Ronald shouted in surprise. "Yes, Harry," Hermione said, "why did you suddenly change your focus? We can't always stay at home and wait for news, we need to take the initiative. To find Voldemort," Harry said, "this way at least we won't be as confused as we are now." 17 But Ronald hesitated, "We don't even know where he is. Do you know what he has done recently? We can try to look up ancient magic texts and other information. Maybe we can find clues about him," Harry said. "Although we don't know exactly when he became active, this must be our only clue at the moment." "You mean?" Hermione said, obviously understanding what Harry was thinking. "Yes, we need to find traces of Voldemort," Harry said decisively, "we can't sit still and wait for death." "But I'm worried." Ronald hesitated. "It doesn't matter," Harry said, "I'm not a child anymore, I can take care of myself." "You know what I mean, Harry," Ronald said, "Voldemort is too cunning, I'm worried." "Ronald, you don't need to say anything," Harry said, "I have made up my mind." "But you can't risk your life, you can't," Ronald said anxiously. But he was interrupted by Harry before he could finish speaking. "Ronald, I know you care about me, I know you love me. But I can't rely on others for protection every time," Harry said seriously. "No, I didn't mean that, Harry," Ronald said, "I wanted to go with you." Harry hesitated. He didn't want to take Ronald with him because they were unfamiliar with him. And he wasn't sure yet whether he could successfully stop Voldemort. If he fails, Ronald will fall into endless pain. "What, you don't believe me?" Seeing Harry's silence, Ronald asked. "No, I just think so," Harry said. "I can't bring you danger, and I can't guarantee that we both will come back safe and sound, Ronald." "I'm not afraid," Ronald said, "I want to go with you to find Voldemort." Harry looked at Ronald's expression and knew he couldn't refuse, so he said, "I need to make some preparations." "Okay, what help do you need?" Dumbledore asked. "I would like to ask Mr. Dumbledore about the defense against the dark arts course," Harry said. "Oh, by the way, Hermione, have you got the potion that Crow needed before?" Harry asked. "It's still a little difficult." Just as Hermione was about to continue speaking, she saw Crow walking in slowly. He looked from Hermione to Harry. "Okay, Harry, I understand," Crow said, "leave it to me." "Thank you, Crow," Harry said. "Then, let's set off now," Crow said, "we must find clues as soon as possible." "Crow, tell me your plan." "We are now comrades in arms," Harry said. "If we need help somewhere, we can support each other." "Okay, Harry," Crow said, "the key to the problem now is that our country has too few clues." Chapter 179. Yes, so we need to find some ancient magic text information, which will help us fight against black magic. This information is hidden in the Order of the Phoenix. Professor Dumbledore told me about it. Crow smiled and spoke. It seemed that everything was within his expectations and he had already thought it through. In this case, let's go to Grimmauld Place first. We will wait until we find the clues. Harry and Hermione nodded in agreement, and then the three of them left Hogwarts. Heading to the Order of the Phoenix headquarters, they will obtain enough ancient magic text information. Crow, you are so smart. Harry praised sincerely, your suggestions are great. Over the years, you have also learned a lot from 773 Defense Against the Dark Arts textbooks, Crow said modestly, your theoretical foundation is very solid, and you have the opportunity to learn some new spells. Yes, Crow. Harry said happily, but don't worry, I won't hold you back. Nothing. Crow shook his head, you are an excellent student, I believe in you. Harry. Ronald spoke suddenly, staring at Harry's back solemnly, can we really solve these troublesome things smoothly? Harry stopped and turned to look at Ronald. I think we will, Ronald. Harry said, we've been working hard, and now we're finally in trouble. I know, Ronald said, but I'm still worried. I understand. Harry said softly, I will try my best. I believe you. Ronald forced a smile. 2 days later, Harry, Ronald, and Hermione arrived at number 12 Grimmauld Place. Here, they met Professor Slughorn who was waiting for them. Harry got a lot of information from Professor Slughorn. And they were guided by the Order of the Phoenix to outside an abandoned house. This is the Order's secret stronghold? Harry asked. Yes. Hermione said, this used to be a communication station for the Order of the Phoenix, BJFD, and it was also a basement. It's very hidden here. Harry said, looking at the dilapidated house in front of him. I remember you said that this was once a very grand building. Yes, Harry. Hermione nodded, of course, now it has been completely destroyed, only these remains and some fragments are left. Harry looked at the fragments carefully and found that they were covered with all kinds of strange symbols and patterns. It didn't take them long to figure out the meaning of these symbols and patterns. Are those things all black magic? Shelley asked. No, Harry, that was left by the ancient magician. Crow said. They are studying the mysteries of black magic, hoping to explore the secrets of the Dark Lord through this method. Why did they do this? Harry asked doubtfully, I heard that they were all dead, right? I don't know, Crow said, but, you know, we need a shortcut now, don't we? Harry sighed, he knew Crow was right, they needed to know more information. They have a large number of databases, but these data are all in a mysterious place. Let's do this. Harry began to assign tasks. Chapter 180. You are responsible for investigating the information about those wizards, and Ronald and I are responsible for collecting information about other wizards. This job is better than mine. Ronald said, let me take charge of this job. No, Harry retorted without hesitation, you know, Crow is very fast. Apart from me, there is probably no one I know who can match him. Okay. Ronald compromised, then, Hermione, you are responsible for sorting out the information. Okay. Hermione said. A few days passed, and Harry, Ronald, and Hermione were extremely busy, but still achieved nothing. They only found some scattered traces, but it obviously didn't help. Not helping them find Voldemort at all. This is not the way to go. Ronald slapped the table angrily. He hated the feeling of being beaten passively. Calm down, Harry advised. I know. Ronald took a few deep breaths to suppress his anger. I just want to find Voldemort quickly, this damn guy is hiding and disappearing, causing us to waste time. I think this is not a bad thing, Crow said. We can take this opportunity to get our wands back. Where should we find Voldemort? Ronald asked. The Order of the Phoenix's intelligence network is very powerful, but they couldn't find any news about Voldemort. Maybe waiting now is the best plan. Crow isn't ready to sit still, but he knows he can't act rashly now. He suddenly remembered the Death Eater from the Pureblood family he had met at the Ministry of Magic before. William Avery, he might have the clues I want. Thinking of this, Crow immediately stood up and left Phoenix Wong. Of course he drank the polyjuice potion again and disguised himself as Professor McGonagall. Crow used the same method to enter the Ministry of Magic and arrived at the Auror's office with ease. He knocked on the door and entered, where he happened to meet William Avery again. Even though he was wearing a hood. McGonagall? William asked in surprise. He obviously didn't expect that McGonagall would dare to appear under his nose. Why do you still dare to come? Is this another task assigned to you by Professor Dumbledore? William frowned and said. Do you think Professor Dumbledore still has time to pay attention to us little characters? Crow asked. He glanced at William and said, I just happen to be here. Humph, don't forget that you are still at Hogwarts. William mocked. You can refuse the mission, or tell Professor Dumbledore the news. If you are willing to do so. Crow said calmly. Okay, let's talk about business. William waved his hand. What are you doing here? I'm looking for something from you. Crow said, didn't you want to cause trouble for me last time? William narrowed his eyes, with a dangerous expression on his face, as if he would hurt someone at any time. Don't get me wrong, I'm not here to die. Crow said, you should remember that I once said that I know your goal. So? William said gloomily. I want to work with you, you know, I know Hogwarts and Dumbledore, and I know many secrets. Crow lured William into taking the bait step by step, and sure enough William was fooled. Chapter 181. Why should I believe your lies? William asked. His lips trembled slightly, as if he was about to burst into intense anger. I don't need you to believe it. Crow said calmly. You just need to remember that I was recommended by Professor Dumbledore, and I can lead you to find what he wants. Okay, said William, if what you say is true. Then, please give us what we want, 412. Don't worry, I keep my word and I won't lie to you. Crow said. But I need to remind you that we must leave Hogwarts as soon as possible. Because things can get confusing here very quickly. Chaos? William asked confused, you mean those wizards? That's right. Crow said, you might as well cooperate with me. You tell me what you want, and I will tell you what you want. After saying that, Crow closed his mouth, knowing that the Death Eater's heart was already moved. What do you want from me? William asked. You know, black magic, I want black magic. And the specific address of the treasure you want. Crow said. We benefit from each other, and I don't want to kill any of you. William stared at the disguised Crow, obviously thinking about something. After a long time, he nodded, okay, I'll do as you say. The two reached a consensus and then entered the Aura office. Crow was overjoyed that he finally got this guy. Let me make it clear to you first, that treasure was not left by Voldemort. His whereabouts have always been mysterious. William said. At least something valuable has been moved by him. It's not important, Crow said. What we want is what Voldemort left behind. I just need to know where that location is. Okay, let's set off. William said, we need to leave the Ministry of Magic first. Crow frowned, this was not good news for him, after all, the Ministry of Magic is an important location for surveillance. But since you have agreed to cooperate with this Death Eater, you can only follow his wishes. The two of them quickly walked out. On the way, Crow met many familiar faces. Not just members of Hogwarts, but also Death Eaters. It seems that everyone knows that William Avery is leaving the Ministry of Magic, and they are all waiting to see the excitement. William and Crow both pretended not to see those people and walked straight over. They took a carriage and rushed to the grove outside the castle. This night was destined to be not peaceful, with people constantly being arrested and others slipping away quietly. Are you sure about this road? Crow asked. They had arrived at the suburbs, and the city lights in the distance gradually disappeared. I know, William whispered, but this road is the shortest. I hope you didn't lie to me, Crow said, or else. Otherwise, what do you want? William sneered, you can try it. 1.4 Crow gritted his teeth and closed his mouth unwillingly. As they continued walking, the surroundings became darker and darker. Where are you going? Crow couldn't help but ask. Guess. William said. Crow rolled his eyes, he didn't bother to listen to this kind of meaningless nonsense. After an unknown amount of time, they stopped in front of a dilapidated manor. Chapter 182. William walked into the manor, and the servants along the way avoided him one after another, seeming to be very afraid of him. This was originally a noble manor, but now it is deserted. Apart from a mess of houses, not even a living thing could be seen. The thing we are looking for is in this room. William said, do you know where it is? In the bedroom on the far right on the left side of the second floor. Crow said, Aren't you afraid there is a trap in here? It doesn't matter. William shook his head. Even if a group of 19 trolls are ambushed inside, I am confident of escaping. Crow did not refute, because William did have that kind of strength, and he had no reason to question it. The two people went up to the second floor and came to the bedroom William mentioned. He stood at the door, hesitated for a few seconds, opened the door and walked in. The room was pitch dark, and I couldn't see my fingers. Suddenly, there was a sound coming from Guhu. William quickly took out his wand and hit it at the windowsill. Bang! A wooden stick fell to the floor. Immediately afterwards, a cloud of blue smoke rose. William immediately held his breath and concentrated, and he felt like he was surrounded by a stench. Ahem! He covered his nose and said, "What does this smell like? Don't you think this smell is familiar?" William turned around, looked at the surrounding environment with disgust, and then continued deeper into the room with Crow. The room was simply decorated, with nothing except an oil painting hanging on the wall. William and Crow walked around the painting and found a letter next to a table. They picked up the letter and carefully checked the civil servants on it. "What is this?" Crow said in surprise. William frowned but said nothing. The next second he turned around suddenly and pointed the wand in his hand at Crow in front of him. "Crow, do you think I really don't know? You pretended to be McGonagall just to get some words out of me." A look of shock flashed across Crow's face. He didn't expect William to discover his plan. "You already knew that, right?" Crow said, "You did it on purpose." "So what?" William sneered. "I was just trying to save my life. Who said I had bad luck? You know my name." Crow's eyes widened. "I had never been exposed." William shrugged. Crow narrowed his eyes. "Is there a traitor in Hogwarts?" William snorted and said nothing. His attitude was enough to prove everything. "This matter must not be leaked," Crow said seriously. "Do you think this sentence is more appropriate for me?" William looked at him provocatively. "What do you want to do?" Crow looked at him warily. William tapped the floor with his wand. "If you want 973 to survive, tell me where the Order of the Phoenix is. I can tell you, I know several kinds of black magic. Enough to make your life worse than death." Crow threatened fiercely. William frowned slightly. He didn't expect Crow to be so stubborn. Although this guy looks younger, he has an extreme personality. William didn't know how to deal with him if he didn't get rid of this trouble as soon as possible. He might really be killed by him. But the most troublesome problem now is that he has no time. "What do you want to know?" Crow's tone softened slightly when he saw that William didn't make a move. "I'm telling you, don't try to control me through these things." Chapter 183. Seeing William's hesitation, Crow instantly pulled out his wand and muttered something. Avada Kedavra. A ball of green fire shot out from Crow's wand and flew to William's forehead instantly. All this happened in a flash of lightning. William waved his wand and blocked the incoming green fire. The green fire exploded and turned into several sparks floating in the air. "It seems I have to kill you," William said with a serious face. His cheeks were covered with bruises. Obviously he had been injured just now. Crow opened his eyes, and it was really surprising that William had escaped his attack. "What do you know?" Crow asked sullenly. "Aren't you a Slytherin student? What do you want to do?" "This has nothing to do with you," William said. "I want to know where the Order of the Phoenix is." "The Order of the Phoenix is the secret organization of Hogwarts. You don't want to know their specific location?" Crow insisted. "You know, I will definitely know," William said coldly. "I will make this matter public." "No. Are you crazy?" Crow roared. "So many classmates were killed, how dare you reveal even a single word? Do you think you are hiding well? Your whereabouts have been leaked to me a long time ago." William stared into his eyes and said, "You took the Ceratopsion from the Ministry of Magic just to lure our agency out and kill them all. Are you crazy?" Crow looked at William angrily. "Do you think I will believe your lies? Whether you believe it or not, I will hand you over to the devil anyway," William said. "You'd better pray that the Order of the Phoenix can save you, because you are guilty of more than this." "So, what about you?" Crow looked at William. "What do you want to do?" "What I'm looking for is the headquarters of the Order of the Phoenix," William said. "As far as I know, a large number of ancient magic potions are stored there. Then you also know that the guards there are tight and not just anyone can break in," Crow said calmly. Yes. William nodded, but someone will help me. A look of surprise appeared on Crow's face. He didn't understand what William meant. William raised his head and looked towards the ceiling. Crow spotted the opponent's flaw, and then launched his own killer move. The green light went straight to William's head. Boom! A silver light swept across, blocking Crow's attack. So you also have a magic spell. Crow put away his wand, but, do you think you can stop me with this? So you think you can leave this room tonight? William sneered, You are too naive. Harry Potter, this is my territory. Crow said, and I won't let you leave alive. After saying that, Crow raised his wand, and a red beam of light struck William. William quickly used his wand to block it, and he was knocked down on the bed by the red light. William got up and looked at Crow panting. He had tried his best just now, but it still didn't help the county. Crow smiled ferociously, raised his wand, and a strong current surged towards William. King of Kings, William felt as if he had been penetrated by electricity, and his whole body ached. I advise you to surrender obediently. Maybe I can spare your life. Crow said softly. William gritted his teeth and forced himself to get up. You shouldn't have done anything to me. Crow whispered. You are the only one who knows about this, and I will never let you go. A thoughtful look flashed in Crow's eyes. The wand in his hand also shimmered with light. Chapter 184. He seemed to be brewing some powerful curse. William's face became very ferocious. As a wizard from a pure-blood family, he usually looked like an elite. It's the first time that I look like this now. He suddenly let out a sharp and piercing scream, and his whole face was distorted, as if he was suffering from great pain. Crow was startled and couldn't help but stop what he was doing. He looked at William lying on the ground, feeling a little drunk. Could he be poisoned? Crow wondered. He squatted down to check William's condition and found that there was no sign of poisoning. William's face was filled with blood red at this moment. He clutched his stomach and howled in pain. His skin began to crack and blood flowed down his fingers. Oops! This is black magic! 227 Crow shouted. He knew that this was a curse that Voldemort had placed on all Death Eaters to prevent anyone from betraying them. Only Voldemort himself and those close to him can lift it. But William couldn't understand his words at all. His mouth opened and closed, and he kept wailing. Crow quickly took out a bottle of healing potion and planned to feed it to William. Boom! A flash of silver light flashed, and Crow was knocked back 2 steps. He looked up towards the door and saw Dumbledore standing there. Crow was stunned for a moment, wondering why he suddenly appeared. "Bjed. Professor," he said with difficulty, "why are you here? Don't worry about him, let's leave quickly. Death Eaters have already discovered this place." Dumbledore said, "If we delay it any longer, it will be dangerous." "Okay." Crow said. He turned and ran outside. "Wait, take him away first." Dumbledore pointed at William. Crow stopped, picked up the unconscious William, and quickly rushed out of the dilapidated manor. After all, William was Crow's only clue now, and Dumbledore couldn't take any chances. He followed Crow, observing the surroundings vigilantly. "Professor! Where are we going now?" Crow couldn't help but ask. "Follow me." Dumbledore said, "You should know the way." Crow was stunned, not understanding why Dumbledore suddenly did this, but since it was his order, Crow did what Dumbledore said. Along the way, Crow remained alert. "Professor, are we trying to escape from Hogsmeade Town?" Shu Luo asked. "No, to Azkaban." Dumbledore replied. "What?" Crow said in shock. "Professor, didn't you say you wanted to go back to school?" "I changed my mind," Dumbledore said, "I need to confirm something." Crow didn't dare to say anything, he could only follow Dumbledore obediently. Dumbledore walked for a long time, and they finally came to a tall and magnificent castle. "Are we going in?" Crow asked. "That's right." Dumbledore said, "We must notify the staff as soon as possible, otherwise Death Eaters will easily find this place." "Professor, is this really a good idea for us?" Crow hesitated. "I remember you once said that this approach would bring disgrace to Hogwarts. Now, we can only take a gamble." Dumbledore said, "If this matter is really related to the pure-blood family." "But, Professor, what if someone else did it?" Crow asked. "No," said Dumbledore. Chapter 185. Although I have no evidence, I have a hunch that this matter is closely related to them. Dumbledore pushed open the iron bars and entered the castle. Professor. A blonde and beautiful maid looked at the two of them in surprise. Merlin, Professor, you are actually here. She said excitedly, what services do you need? Is Maclean here? Dumbledore asked. Yes, he is in the office on the second floor, the maid replied. Thank you, I want to see him. Dumbledore said. He walked straight to the second floor. Crow followed closely behind Dumbledore. They knocked on Maclean's office door. Come in. Maclean's voice came from the door. Dumbledore pushed open the door and stepped in. Professor Dumbledore. Maclean said in surprise. He didn't expect Dumbledore to visit suddenly, and he was alone, which made him wary. Oh, Professor Maclean, we meet again. Dumbledore said with a smile, but his eyes were fixed on the letter on the table. Maclean looked into Dumbledore's eyes, trying to read his mind. However, Dumbledore was very cautious and did not reveal any flaws. Maclean frowned secretly. Dumbledore's performance exceeded his expectations. Dumbledore ignored Maclean and paced slowly around the table. Suddenly, Dumbledore stretched out his right hand, grabbed the letter, opened it and read it carefully. Oh, it seems that my guess was correct. It is exactly as I imagined. Dumbledore said, Professor Maclean, why are you here? Maclean didn't speak, he was silent. He didn't know why Dumbledore did this, so he didn't want to answer his question. Dumbledore smiled and looked away. Professor Maclean, do you know why I came? Maclean remained silent. You don't have to worry that I'm here to harm you. Dumbledore smiled and said, because, I want to help you. Hey! Maclean looked at Dumbledore in confusion, why are you helping me? For Hogwarts, of course. Dumbledore said, I know you want to destroy Voldemort. Do you think you can deal with Voldemort with your own strength? Dumbledore asked. Maclean frowned and said nothing. Dumbledore continued, I want my students to be safe and alive. Of course this is my plan, Maclean said calmly, he will kill more innocent people. It's a pity that you are too young, Professor Maclean. Voldemort is much more cunning than you think. Dumbledore sighed. You don't know what kind of terrible disaster this world is facing, and that disaster is about to come. Dumbledore said seriously. What disaster? Maclean couldn't help but wonder. A group of Death Eaters are attacking Hogsmeade, and I suspect their ultimate goal may be Hogwarts. Dumbledore said, I think you should also have received the news. The Death Eaters are preparing to take action. Maclean looked gloomy and said nothing. I will not sit back and let this tragedy happen, Professor Maclean. So I hope you can join me in stopping the Death Eaters. Dumbledore said sincerely. Chapter 186. Professor Dumbledore, what exactly do you want to do? Maclean said warily, you don't just want to save Hogwarts, right? I just want to protect the children at school. Dumbledore said calmly, besides, you don't like the Dark Lord, do you? I don't like Voldemort, Maclean said, this is something you have known for a long time, but does this have anything to do with the deal between us? 883. We can cooperate. Dumbledore said, if you want to fight Voldemort, you need more power. But you can't accomplish this task alone, can you? I happen to need a strong enough partner. Dumbledore said, I hope to invite you to join. No. I won't agree to it. Maclean flatly refused. Dumbledore's plan was so crazy that it could even be said to be whimsical. Firstly, he didn't think one person could defeat Voldemort, and secondly, he wouldn't believe anything Dumbledore said. Because Dumbledore never told him the truth from beginning to end. This annoyed Maclean. I know your concerns. Dumbledore seemed to have anticipated Maclean's decision, I can help you. You? Maclean said in surprise, why do you? Dumbledore pointed to Crow beside him and motioned for him to stand there. I understand your concerns, my friend. Dumbledore looked at Maclean with a smile. But now that we have some clues, I think we should pursue this matter and fight against the evil forces. I don't believe you. Maclean said unceremoniously, Dumbledore, you are not qualified to be my friend at all. Professor Maclean. Dumbledore shook his quill and said, you have to understand who has the initiative now. You dare not tell me the truth. Maclean said firmly, you are afraid that I will reveal your secret. Really? I think you've made a mistake, Professor Maclean. Dumbledore paused. If you are really willing to cooperate with me, then write your name on the Hogwarts magic cloak. Your reputation is more important than the so-called evil forces in your mouth. 27 Humph. Maclean sneered, turned and left the room. Watching Maclean leave, Crow whispered, Professor, this. He will agree sooner or later, Dumbledore said. I believe he doesn't want to be trapped and die in Hogwarts. Professor, you mean? Crow said in shock. You thought of it, didn't you? Dumbledore said, looking at Crow. You know Professor Slughorn, he once said something to me. He always lets people down. But, Crow said, it's too dangerous. I also know that this behavior is very risky, but what if you want to see Voldemort wreak havoc on the entire magical world? Dumbledore said, if no one comes out to stop this in this 0.1 hour. Then in the next few hundred years, the world will become a complete mess. Crow was stunned, he didn't expect Dumbledore to say such words. I know it's hard for you to believe, Dumbledore said bitterly. But the reality is so cruel, I have to do it. Chapter 187. Professor, Crow hesitated for a moment and then asked cautiously. Are you sure that Voldemort will not take action against Hogwarts? I'm not sure, Dumbledore said calmly, but I believe in one thing. What's up? I believe that Voldemort will never allow his enemies to exist in this world. Dumbledore smiled and said that he would do his best to get rid of Professor Maclean. Okay. Crow said. Crow, this is the best option, isn't it? Dumbledore looked at Crow, staring straight at him. You want to stay in this world and witness the birth of miracles, right? Crow didn't speak, but his eyes told 19 Bulido his answer. Okay, Dumbledore said happily, tonight, you can come with me. Where are we going? Crow asked. Go and see William, who was possessed by dark magic. He is also a poor man. Dumbledore said. I heard he was locked up in the cellar, Crow said. It was a scary place. You don't have to worry, Dumbledore said. Although there are many venomous snakes and rats in the cellar, I promise they won't bite you. And you will find that this is simply a good place for self-cultivation. The two people walked into the dark cellar one after another. Crow pressed close to Dumbledore's body, afraid of touching something. Dumbledore led Crow around the rooms deep in the cellar and to the far corner. There was a man curled up there, wearing shabby clothes and dirty, with long unkempt hair covering his face. He is like a stray dog. Dumbledore stretched out his foot and kicked him and said. Hey, doesn't the dark magic taste good? The curled-up man slowly raised his head. Revealing a pale face, his eyes were lifeless, as if his soul had left his body. Oh, my God! Crow couldn't help covering his mouth. Professor, what's going on? His brain is broken. Dumbledore said, I guess this may be the sequelae of dark magic. I think, Crow said, that he might hurt you. I don't think he will, said Dumbledore. Crow did not continue to admonish Dumbledore. He knew his professor's temperament, he had made up his mind, and he would not change his mind no matter what he said. So, how do you plan to place him? Crow asked. When the time is right, I will send him away. Dumbledore said. He glanced at the huddled man and then changed the subject. By the way, Crow, how is your investigation going on Diggory? I asked someone about it, and it is said that his reputation in the school is not bad. Crow said. Of course I know that this is an excellent professor and he will not betray the school easily. Dumbledore said, I'm still surprised, though. What? Professor Diggory will actually attend Snape's potions class during the summer vacation. Dumbledore said. I remember that it was Maclean who suggested raising the potions class to level 4. This is a good thing. Crow said, I think. He may want to increase the influence of the college in this way. Chapter 188. Oh. Dumbledore frowned and said, I originally thought he just liked potions. That doesn't completely rule him out, Crow said. Or, he needs more honors. He wanted to be a great wizard, Dumbledore said. There is no doubt about this. However, I always feel that his goal is not just this. Professor. I just suddenly thought that he once said that he would formulate a series of strict rules for Hogwarts. This includes not being allowed to use magic and confinement spells, and not killing casually. These rules are enough to destroy Hogwarts. Dumbledore said calmly. I don't believe this was just an angry remark he made in the heat of the moment. Crow was silent. Okay, let's not talk about this. Dumbledore waved his wand. A green light lit up the floor. It's time we went to see something else, Dumbledore said. Are you sure it's safe here? Of course. Dumbledore said with a smile. This is my only way. If I can't even implement this plan, what else can I do? Then I'm relieved. Crow said. The two men walked down the cellar. The further down you go, the colder and damper the air becomes. Suddenly, they stopped and stood in front of an iron door, staring at the scene inside. What should we do, Professor? Crow said, suppressing a trembling voice. Don't worry. Dumbledore said, I already have a plan for your plan. After saying that, he pushed open the iron door and stepped in. Crow also hurriedly followed. As soon as he entered the secret room, the strong smell of blood hit his nostrils. Crow couldn't help but hold his breath. The walls of this secret room are inlaid with all kinds of weird bottles and jars, which makes people's hair stand on end. This is it? Crow asked in a low voice. Alchemical products, Dumbledore said. You should know that ancient magic words evolved from these alchemical products. Therefore, we need to find the ancient magic words and decipher them. Crow looked at the scattered bottles and cans around him, feeling a chill in his heart. He forced himself to concentrate and stop thinking about these disgusting things. Dumbledore seemed to be accustomed to the scene in the secret room. He looked around, then picked up a stone and knocked on one of the transparent glass jars. There was a dong-dong sound coming from the jar, as if something was wandering inside. Dumbledore listened carefully. After a moment, he took out his wand and flicked it on the glass jar. Suddenly, the jar shattered, and a black insect crawled out of it, squirming into the soil and disappearing. It's a little black beetle, Dumbledore finished. Their sense of smell is very keen, almost as good as that of a king spaniel. Crow looked at the black beetle in Dumbledore's hand, feeling secretly wary, Nanyo Zhao. This little bug was so fast that he couldn't dodge it. Crow, Dumbledore looked at him, you are still young, so you must learn to be brave sometimes. No matter what difficulties you encounter, you can't back down. Otherwise you will always be able to live under the protection of others. I understand, Professor, Crow said. Dumbledore patted his shoulder, then picked up another ceramic jar next to him and knocked on it. Chapter 189. Boom. Another black beetle crawled out. Look, said Dumbledore. I just tried it, and you can't even catch them without special means. Yes, Professor. Crow nodded and said, but what are these bugs for? It has many uses, such as, Dumbledore pointed into the distance. He can track the scent of Dementors. Oh, my God, there is such a crowd. Crow said exaggeratedly. Didn't you see it now? Dumbledore laughed. I don't want 843 to have something nasty following us when we go to bed tonight. That would be too bad, Crow. I understand, Professor, leave this matter to me. Crow said. I promise I will never leave any clues. Thank you for your hard work, dear boy. Dumbledore said with a smile. By the way, should we go find Hermione? Crow hesitated. Professor. It's okay, I was just joking, don't be nervous. Dumbledore said. Although you are a little less courageous than I expected. However, I believe you will not refuse this job. Crow forced a smile and nodded. Dumbledore smiled with satisfaction and led Crow to another road, heading deeper into the castle. They walked through the long and narrow corridor and then walked around to the side of an arch bridge. After turning the corner, you came to a huge room. There is a copper lock hanging on the door. Crow stretched out his right hand and tapped his index finger on it, and a blue symbol appeared on the door frame. Click! The door lock unlocked. He stepped in with his feet. The lights in the room came on. Crow was stunned because he saw dozens of people sitting in the room. This is... They are all my friends. Dumbledore said with a smile. Crow's cheeks twitched twice, revealing an awkward yet polite smile. Jai, Professor, please forgive me, I did not expect such a situation to occur. It's okay, Crow, after all, this is the secret of the wizarding world. Dumbledore said with a smile. The corners of Crow's mouth twitched violently, and he didn't know what to say. Dumbledore continued, they are all the best students from all over the world. I think these people are enough to help us find ancient magic words and decipher the secrets of these alchemies. Crow nodded, trying to control his expression even though he wanted to say something. Dumbledore turned his head and looked at a group of men, women, and children of various ages. Hello, he bowed to these people first. My name is Dumbledore, and we will share an organization in the city in the future, responsible for investigating the entire wizarding and muggle world. Hello, Dumbledore introduced Crow beside him to these people. His name is Crow, he is an excellent wizard, and he will become one of us. Welcome, Mr. Crow, a middle-aged wizard was the first to applaud and said. I'm Adelaide. Thank you, dear Mr. Adelaide. Crow said. I am Professor Sprout of Ravenclaw, the woman also said. I think I will be happy to assist you, Mr. Crow. I am willing to cooperate with you. Crow nodded and shook her hand. Hello, the other witch said. Chapter 190. I am Irina from Ravenclaw. I think we need to talk in more detail about cooperation. Of course, Crow said, I will arrange for you to participate in the research. I will fully cooperate with you. The Ravenclaw lady said, her eyes twinkling. She is looking forward to this operation. The importance of this ancient relic is beyond doubt. If something of sufficient value can be obtained from it, it will change the destiny of wizard society. And these treasures of ancient alchemists will become an important asset in the history of wizard development. Of course, in addition to ancient alchemy, there are many other benefits, such as magical materials. These ancient alchemists were once members of the Ancient Wizards Alliance, and their wealth was very rich. If these resources are used to build laboratories or create some alchemical products, they will be extremely valuable. Therefore, Dumbledore decided to put Crow in charge of the case. Let's first find the secret of the ancient magic words. Dumbledore said. I understand. Crow nodded. You can choose some magical materials at will. Dumbledore said. Remember, never touch magic items. Especially those dangerous things, you should be aware of. Those things can easily escape using the apparition charm. If you are attacked, I'm afraid I won't be able to save you. Everyone nodded in agreement. Let's search separately, Dumbledore said. Crow immediately understood what Dumbledore meant. They divided into 3 groups and searched each room separately. And he walked to the bookshelf area alone. I guess everything here is in that bookcase. Dumbledore muttered to himself, facing the empty bookshelf. I want to find this book. He stepped towards the bookcase and reached out to push open the door of the bookcase. It was empty, there was nothing inside. Strange. Dumbledore frowned, that's impossible. He looked around, as if trying to find some clues. Just then, a gust of wind blew and a book fell to the floor with a clatter. Dumbledore hurriedly picked up the book on the floor and opened it to read. His expression became serious. How is this possible? He whispered to himself in a low voice and carefully looked at the ancient book in his hand. After a while, he sighed and gave up. It's really not here. Where could it be? Could it be? Dumbledore stood at his desk, lost in thought. Suddenly, Dumbledore's head jerked up. He looked towards the door, then quickly glanced around. His gaze paused on the wall a few meters away. I see. Dumbledore murmured. He slowly but surely approached the wall. There is a small window there. His eyes fell on the windowsill, and then he squatted down. He gently peeled away the layer of dust with his hands, revealing a wooden board. Here. Dumbledore murmured, so that's it. He used his wand to cut open the wooden board, revealing a dark hole. Dumbledore moved the plank away and saw a secret passage. He groped forward along the secret passage, which became wider and wider, leading directly to a room. The furnishings of the room are simple and plain, with only a table, a chair, a brazier, and a stove. Where exactly is this place? Crow asked in surprise. Chapter 191. He looked around and felt that this place looked like some kind of sacrificial place. There was no decoration in this room, but there was a gloomy atmosphere surrounding it. Moreover, there was no living thing in the room and it was quiet. Dumbledore shook his head, said nothing, walked directly to the brazier, and put out the brazier. A red light illuminated the room. The contents of the room were exposed to public view. Crow closely followed Dumbledore's footsteps, trying to control the rhythm of his breathing. We just mentioned that the ancient magic words disappeared in the 16th century, Dumbledore suddenly spoke. So we must quickly find the remaining ancient magic words. Only in this way can we explain those profound and obscure black magics, and Dumbledore looked at Crow. Are you ready? Crow nodded solemnly. Very well, said Dumbledore, what we need to do now. It is to confirm the authenticity of that information. We need to enter Hogwarts and find it. Dumbledore said seriously. Leave this matter to me. You are responsible for collecting information about ancient alchemists and finding ancient magic words. No problem, Principal. Crow said. As for you. Dumbledore turned to look at another team member, you go find someone. The boy was stunned for a moment, and then quickly ran out of the office to carry out the order. I'm going to Hogsmeade, Dumbledore said. Crow nodded. Then I'll go first, Dumbledore said. You should protect yourselves. Crow nodded and sent Dumbledore away. I hope I'm wrong, Crow said. This is not a good idea. Do you also think there's something weird about this magic tower? Enelo asked. Crow was silent for a moment, then he nodded. Then go and have a look. The two wizards left the room together, went down the stairs, and came to the living room downstairs. The furnishings here are similar to those of a library. Enel looked at the room. Yes, the books here are all about ancient alchemists. Crow said. I wonder what those people left behind. Maybe they want to pass it on. Enelo said with a smile. But this idea is too stupid, there is no magic here at all. You don't understand, Kia sighed. If there was no magic, how could this place be so dilapidated? Who knows? Enel shrugged. He was not interested in the stories of ancient wizards. What are you doing? Enelo saw Crow staring at a wooden box in the corner. The wooden box was locked behind an iron fence with a key hanging on it. Crow took out the key and opened the iron fence. There were many bottles and cans and stacks of paper stacked in the wooden box. Enelo curiously walked over to observe the bottles and jars. Crow poured out the bottles and jars and found that they were all ingredients for potions. What is this? Crow asked. 4.8 He picked up one of the bottles, put it to the tip of his nose and smelled it, his face changed slightly. The effects of this potion are more advanced than what Professor Snape has to offer. He said, this is a magic amplifying agent. After hearing what he said, Anelo's eyes widened instantly. What, magic amplifying agent? Yeah, Crow said affirmatively. Although I'm not sure of the specific efficacy yet, it's definitely very powerful. Chapter 192. Mr. Tom, please help us buy something. After saying that, Crow waved around and apologized. Uncles and aunties, I'm sorry, my friend and I have something urgent and need to leave. Let's have dinner together next time. The surrounding guests were in an uproar. There was a lot of discussion. Don't these two brats know that Diagon Alley is full of dangers? That's right. You dare to come here? Isn't it too bold? Tom was also stunned. He already had severe mysophobia. I don't even bother to go into the dirty streets. Not to mention a place like Diagon Alley. But Crow and Hermione saved him after all, and he couldn't bear to reject the two children. 19 So, he could only scratch his head in distress. Okay. Just wait, I will buy you something and go back. You two must be good and don't lose your temper, otherwise I will lock you out or ask Malfoy to send you back. Crow said threatening words. But there was a smile on his face. The two little carrot heads were in a trance. At this moment, it seemed that they saw the brother who loved and protected them when they were young. They couldn't help but feel a little sore in their noses. Okay. They nodded vigorously. Thank you, Mr. Tom. You're welcome. Tom said and walked out of the bar. But just as he turned around, he suddenly stopped. Oh, by the way. I remembered. This should be your wallet. Thanks. Crow reached out and took it. If you have any trouble, go find Blake. Crow nodded, turned around and walked out of the bar, heading towards the depths of Diagon Alley. Hermione watched blankly as Crow disappeared down the street. Quite a while. Only then did he react suddenly. Ah! We still owe money. Crow heard the screams behind him, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. You still owe money. Ha 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 ha. It's good now, someone finally paid it back for us. Are we being cheated? Definitely is. Let me just say those two brats are unreliable. Who would have thought that they would actually come looking for that old monster Quirrell? Humph, this is courting death. That kid is quite handsome. If he wasn't a Death Eater, I guess some girls would like him, right? Ha ha ha. The surrounding guests gloated. Although I don't know how the two imps entered Diagon Alley, everyone who can enter Diagon Alley has a background. The last few are Death Eaters. As for the other little wizards? Hee hee. You look happy. Crookshanks, who had been silent all this time, glanced aside and suddenly noticed that Crow had a bright face. And she smiled like a flower. This is completely different from the little rabbit in his impression. Yeah, of course I'm happy that my creditor was caught. Crow grinned. Then why didn't you tell him? 867 Crookshanks asked curiously. They are Death Eaters. If I tell them, wouldn't it reveal my secret? Crow touched his pocket watch. Besides, do you think they will believe it? Didn't you successfully alert the enemy? Crookshanks was a little depressed. Crow's actions were absolutely stupid. Snatch the enemy from the grass. Crow whispered the word. Then, a mocking smile appeared. Do you think they won't investigate me? Crookshanks frowned, vaguely aware of Crow's difference. Don't worry, since I dare to do this, I don't have to worry about their investigation. Chapter 193. No one can take anything from me. Crow said. I see. Then go home quickly, I'm hungry. Good. Hogwarts. The moon is extra full tonight. But because of the school, the entire castle was shrouded in dark clouds. Dark, silent, cold. But only Dumbledore's office. The lights are bright. Professor Dumbledore, I think you should know that there is no such thing as hate without reason in this world. What do you want? Dumbledore looked at the wizard sitting opposite him, wearing grey robes and sunglasses. That slightly pale, but still handsome face now carried a touch of sarcasm. I want you to hand over the Daily Prophet you hid. Snape's tone was calm, not even strong, but filled with determination that was irrefutable. The Daily Prophet. Dumbledore raised his eyebrows, a strange color flashing across his eyes. The Daily Prophet was not created by Dumbledore, but was left behind by his adopted child. But he never destroyed it. It just stayed hidden in his desk drawer. He never thought that one day a Death Eater would come to ask for the magazine. Why do you say that? Dumbledore's tone gradually became colder. Snape stared at the old man with the white beard in front of him. He could feel that Dumbledore was extremely angry. I'm not a Death Eater, and there's no need to tell you why, right? Snape stood up and took off his hood, revealing his pale face. But I think you don't have the authority to access the Daily Prophet, so, you'd better leave it to me. If you don't hand it over, I will rob it. After he finished speaking, he was ready to leave. I don't mind if you try. Dumbledore's voice deepened. No, I don't mind. Snape opened the door and left. Boom. The door panel hit the wall, making a deafening sound. Dumbledore looked at the empty room, shook his head and sighed, I always feel like something is not quite right. Something's wrong. A childish voice came from behind him. Dumbledore looked up and saw Crow standing in the doorway. When did you come in? Well, just when that person knocked on the door. Crow pointed to the door, then walked to the sofa, picked up a cup of hot chocolate and stuffed it into his mouth. Didn't I say this is for you, why don't you eat it? Dumbledore was a little unhappy and handed Crow another cup on the coffee table. Thank you, Professor Dumbledore. I'm full. Crow shouted. He had expected Dumbledore to criticize him. But unexpectedly, Dumbledore ignored him. He froze and blinked. This state seems a little weird. Is it because he was threatened by Death Eaters? After thinking about it, he took out his wand, threw the chocolate into his mouth, Delise, and swallowed it. Dumbledore then shifted his attention and glanced at Crow in surprise. You can actually eat it. Ah! I forgot, my stomach is a storage space, so this little chocolate is nothing. Crow explained. Then he saw Dumbledore's stunned look. Dumbledore coughed in embarrassment, then picked up a stack of documents and flipped through them. Crow didn't want to continue teasing the teacher, so he just sat on the sofa and read a book. Chapter 194. But his mind was always thinking about whether he should tell Neville about this kind of thing. Neville, come and see, your little owl has flown back. At the corner of a street, a young witch yelled excitedly at a roadside vendor selling pancakes and fruit. The vendor immediately ran over and placed the pancakes he had just bought in front of the witch, and also gave her a pack of cigarettes. That's it. Don't tell Mom. The little witch ran away in a flash. Okay*, the vendor smiled and agreed. Little girl, Please get me a bottle of ale. At this time, a voice sounded next to him. Okay, sir. The vendor skillfully took out a bottle of malt liquor and handed over another gold galleons. Only then was he satisfied and put away the money. Thanks. The man thanked him, then walked slowly towards a dilapidated cabin with ale in hand. That direction is Aragog's lair. Aragog opened his eyes and saw the man in front of him. He was startled and almost jumped up. Don't be afraid, it's me, Bobo. The man comforted it with a smile. Aragog breathed a sigh of relief, and he lay down, letting Bobo climb onto his back. Bobo lay down comfortably, closed his eyes and enjoyed the sunshine, BJ, on his body. Aragog took steps forward and walked slowly back along the street. The soles of its feet stepped on the stone bricks, making a crunching sound. An hour later, Aragog stopped. That's Hirebo's residence, and he and Bobo need to come back here every day. But now, the windows of that house are open. The scene inside made his pupils shrink sharply and his whole body trembled. Bobo, listen, there are strange sounds. Aragog looked around vigilantly, and after making sure there was no one around, he quietly approached the window. A faint moaning sound reached his ears. That human. Aragog lowered his head and saw a scene that made his hair stand on end. A man was holding a skeleton and chewing on its neck. The man looked like a griffin, but more like some kind of terrifying monster. Aragog couldn't understand the man. It can be confirmed that he is definitely a terrible evil god. But why did that man bite a human to death? Moreover, why is that human body still alive? Bang bang bang. Suddenly, Aragog heard a rapid knock on the door. Bobo, a guest is here. Aragog quickly reminded Bobo, then turned his head and looked at the door. The door opened and Crow walked in. He obviously came in at a trot. Crow. Aragog said in surprise. I heard, Professor Dumbledore asked me to follow him. Crow took a breath and asked, where is this place? This is Hogsmeade. Aragog said. Oh. Crow suddenly understood, he looked around, and finally landed on the windowsill behind Aragog. It was a patch of dense grass, with a twisted face vaguely revealed in it. Who is this? Its name is Stuart Evans, and he is Professor Dumbledore's friend. Dumbledore waved his wand gently behind Crow, and the originally locked door closed on its own. He looked at the ferocious face. Evans, who are these two children? He asked. Chapter 195. Dumbledore. Stuart Evans' voice was sharp and hoarse. A group of stupid, timid cowards who dare not face us and only know how to hide in dark corners. What we need are warriors, heroes who truly dare to fight against the darkness. Oh. Dumbledore said calmly, there are many such heroes in our school. Not them. Stuart Evans shouted loudly, those cowardly bastards are not worthy of the word hero at all. They are not worthy of trust. Then why did you choose me? Evans. Dumbledore looked at Evans' face. Do you think, with just a letter or a sentence, I can lead you to find Alvin? Lee. I believe you are a wise man, Dumbledore. Stuart Evans bared his teeth and said in a strange tone, you are a smart man. If you are willing to become one of us, then you will get what you desire. Dumbledore was silent for a second, then smiled. Of course, Evans, I do. Well, welcome, Dumbledore Karloff. Stuart Evans raised his arms happily. You will be my companion, won't you? Dumbledore. Yes, I do. Dumbledore nodded, I do. I like your honesty, Dumbledore. Stuart Evans was so happy that he couldn't wait to invite, can you help me complete my plan? I don't know if there's anything I can do to help you. Dumbledore hesitated and asked, what are you going to do? He didn't know what purpose Stuart Evans had. This is not his style. Aragog was about to answer, but was stopped by Dumbledore. Bobo, wait a minute, we need to discuss it calmly. Dumbledore said. Bobo lay down obediently. Evans, what do you want to do? Dumbledore asked calmly. It's simple, Dumbledore, I need you to help me complete my plan to save the world. Stuart Evans said in a voice full of madness and violence, as you can see, this place has turned into purgatory. *yen. The villains and evil beings here have taken control of this place, and they have killed all our people. We must resist them. But our enemies are too cruel. Aragog interjected, those Death Eaters have many powerful spells. Their blood power is purer than ours. Moreover, we have no weapons. Arms. Stuart Evans sneered, where are the weapons in the hands of those despicable Death Eaters? Anything besides spells. At least, my master, my great father, left many treasures behind. Baby. Yes, everything of value, such as that precious gem. Aragog stretched out his paw and pointed at the blue bead on the table, which was shining with a faint green light. We will sacrifice it to our gods. That way, we will gain power that can rival those Death Eaters. That gem. Dumbledore frowned and looked at the bead on the table that was emitting a faint green light. That's no ordinary gem, Evans. Chapter 196. Yes, that gem is an extraordinary thing. It was a gift from my father to my mother. My mother told me that it is a sacred magic item that can give us strength. When Stuart Evans said this, he suddenly paused and then continued, of course, that's just an excuse she made up. I remember my father once warned me that I was not allowed to use that magic item because it was a 013 taboo and a sacred object that cannot be desecrated. It looked at Dumbledore, its expression becoming serious. So, Dumbledore, give us the gem. I reject. Dumbledore refused without hesitation. He seemed to have guessed the intentions of these undead. You want to resurrect your wife and children? This is not possible. They should not bear the sins anymore. No, Dumbledore. Stuart Evans denied. It glanced at the roof. No, they should be reborn. 27. The curse of the gem is gone. Curse. Dumbledore shook his head. No, no matter who did this kind of thing, we have no right to pursue it. But... Stuart Evans' words paused for a moment, and then he muttered something in a low voice, as if he was casting some kind of magic. Then, Dumbledore felt an evil force that made him tremble, surging out from the shadow of Stuart Evans and wrapping around him, as if something was approaching. But Dumbledore didn't panic, he just touched Bobo's head comfortingly. Bobo raised his forelimbs angrily and roared at Stuart Evans. But it soon fell down softly. It stared at the darkness next to Stuart Evans in fear, as if it was frightened. Don't be afraid of Bobo, you are a family, aren't you? Aragog carefully persuaded Bobo, trying to ease this dangerous scene. Don't you want your family to be resurrected? I do want to resurrect them, my people. Bobo lowered his head and rubbed his eyes with his paws. What do you do? Dumbledore said softly. I will become a powerful wizard. Evans said arrogantly, I will replace the current Herbo and bring the entire America under my rule. I will establish a new kingdom, I will rebuild the Church of Helen. It snorted contemptuously, I also want all Death Eaters to kneel at my feet and pray. I want everyone to know that the crimes they have committed will eventually be repaid. But I'm afraid your method is wrong. Dumbledore sighed, you have completely destroyed your ancestors, Evans. Are you not going to save the world? This is my world. Evans said in a matter-of-fact tone, we are the masters of this land, Dumbledore. I am the greatest 3.8 wizard in the future, and I don't need any saving, because we can rewrite history ourselves, and we will succeed. You know, how we are of greatness, we will become true gods, and we will take you out of the sea of suffering. No, 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 Evans. Dumbledore shook his head and said softly, this world is hopeless, you shouldn't do this. Chapter 197. There's nothing we can't change. Evans' voice deepened, this is our world, and no matter what we try to do, it won't change that, Dumbledore. My friends, our world is declining and dying, and we are running out of time. We have no retreat, Dumbledore. No, I don't think you have no way out, Ace. Dumbledore stood up and looked at the sky outside the window. There were thick clouds and thunder, as if a disaster was about to come. I have heard your story, Evans. You were imprisoned in Gringotts for hundreds of years, and you were even close to being executed. I believe that you must hate those judges and those who the dark wizard who oppressed you. Old Dumbledore turned to Evans and said, you don't mind killing them all, do you? What do you think? Stuart Evans gave a shrill cry, I hate them. I have long been tired of this cruel society. My monthly salary is only 10 pfennigs. These idiots can't even afford basic daily expenses. How dare they deprive me of my wealth? All my property was donated to Hogwarts. Why should they take away my money? It's not just the money. Dumbledore shook his head, you have other sources of income, don't you? Stuart, you have school subsidies and your annual salary is quite high. Although this money is not enough to pay for your childcare and medical expenses, it is not necessary. Of your children, they need a better living environment. No, those idiots don't deserve it. Evans screamed, they have no talent for learning magic. Not always. Dumbledore raised the corners of his mouth slightly. Evans, one of my students is a woman named Professor McGonagall. She was once a senior professor at Durmstrang. She once developed a potion in an experiment that could enhance the effectiveness of magic and potions. The potion gave her child magical power, but it deprived her child of the possibility of becoming a wizard. That failed potion will damage the children's fragile internal organs and destroy their souls, just like those who are forced to eat devil fruits. They are destined to never master the power of wizards. But your ending is different, Evans. You already have the skills to control the power of blood. You can give children the power of wizards. But I guess that would be painful, Evans, that's not your child, is it? The old wizard squinted his eyes and stared at the basilisk in front of him. He asked, you don't want to give up your original plan. You want your children to continue to be monsters, right? Shut up. Stuart waved his arms violently, like a frantic python. You know what I want to do, Dumbledore, we want to destroy Azeroth, we want to create a new world. You know what? Dumbledore. Its tone suddenly dropped. When I decided to attack Nurmengard Castle, when I decided to slaughter Lockhart and destroy Comitage, I anticipated today. I know you will stop me, Dumbledore, and if you help, there may be a chance. Chapter 198. I can't help you, Evans. Dumbledore said frankly, as of now, the power gap between the two of us is too great. You are no match for those fallen guardians. They will crush everything, including your dreams. Then you don't need to intervene. Evans sneered and replied, Dumbledore, you will regret your stupid kindness. What awaits us will be a long and arduous journey, Snow, then it's up to you. Dumbledore shrugged, don't you want to save the world? Then go quickly. I bless you, Evans. In addition, if you need help with anything, remember to tell me. After all, I am also your brother, and I will do my best to help you. Goodbye, Evans. Old Dumbledore saluted the giant snake in front of him and said goodbye, turned around and walked towards the door, but after taking a few steps, he stopped. Evans' breathing became rapid, and he stared at the empty room in front of him with wide eyes. On that wall, there was a painting filled with all kinds of weird, hideous, and ugly portraits. The wizard in the portrait is raising his head and looking towards the camera, and in the portrait, Dumbledore's back looks unusually tall. Some kind of speculation flashed through Evans' head, so he screamed and rushed out of the seat and quickly ran into the portrait. Then, a scream sounded. No, along with the shrill screams, the portrait hanging on the wall suddenly shattered, and a twisted light illuminated all the floors in the room. Bang, 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 bang. Amidst a series of explosions, under the distorted light, 3 wizards in red robes appeared around Evans' body. They have pale hair, grey eyes, and bronze skin. They use a silver cane to lean on the ground, as if they are keeping steady, and as if they are wary of Evans. Oh, that's surprising, little Evans. One of the wizards in black robes said hello in a hoarse voice. He covered his face with a black scarf, revealing strange black spots on his chin. To his left and right, the other 2 companions looked the same, looking like wizards and demon hunters. We thought you would hide at home and dare not come out, Evans. Unexpectedly, you are quite bold. Do you think your mother will protect you? Who are you? Why are you here? Evans screamed, did you bring it here? I'm warning you, leave quickly. Otherwise I will tear you apart. The black-robed wizard held out a finger to signal Evans to be quiet. We're not here to cause trouble. He said, we are also guests invited here to attend the Hogsmeade dinner party. You didn't come to visit this place. Evans looked at the black-robed wizard suspiciously. I don't welcome any strangers into Hogwarts, especially at such an important moment. Oh, don't get me wrong, kid. 5.7 The wizard in black snorted lightly, with a hint of mockery, I've heard about you, Evans. You were the bravest wizard apprentice and even became the principal of Hogwarts because of it. But you still failed to pass the exam in the end. This matter made Hogwarts as my old friends are all interested in you. So, I hope you can understand that as the headmaster of Hogwarts, we have the right to summon you. Chapter 199. You crazy dog! Evans roared angrily, but before he finished speaking, the wizard in black waved the short silver stick in his hand. Amidst a crisp knocking sound, the thick snake tail instantly withered and became limp. On the ground. This little punishment is a small lesson for you. The wizard stood up, threw the short stick to his companion, and then said to Evans, I don't care what ambitions you have, Evans. You should be grateful that your father is still alive. He died before you were born. There is nothing I can do to prevent this tragedy from happening. Your soul and your body belong to Hogwarts. This is what we all agreed upon, and we will give you enough power and wealth. But all this is based on your ability to take revenge on the basis of. The black-robed wizard bent down, patted Evans on the head, and whispered, we have only one goal, revenge. 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 Do you understand this word? Evans, we want to avenge your mother. And you only need to provide a little bit of power for this great goal in your field. We will prepare a more suitable body for you, and you will become the second mistress in the history of Hogwarts. This is your glory. The black-robed wizard said, this is also the price you have to pay, Evans. You are the pawn of our revenge, and our mission is yours. After speaking, the black-robed wizard raised his hand. On his wrist, a black, gem-like ring slowly rotated, emitting wisps of strange power, lingering in Evans' ears. Under the influence of that power, his voice became ethereal, echoing in her ears like a ghost, Evans, you should know where your future is and where your identity is. So, if you cooperate with us, we can reach a consensus. In this way, we can also send you back to your hometown as soon as possible. This is very important to us. There are benefits to all. I do not want. Evans screamed and struggled to resist, but those weird powers wrapped around her body. The more she struggled, the tighter those powers tightened. Evans, I advise you to be more obedient. The black-robed wizard frowned and said, if you continue to resist, then we can only imprison you and wait until your mother comes to pick you up. Don't hurt Evans. At this moment, the boy sitting on the sofa suddenly stood up and shouted in a childish voice, Evans is innocent. You bad guys. Let Evans go. UBD. Shut up. Evans screamed, and she glared at Alvin fiercely with her snake eyes, as if threatening him, if you keep yelling and screaming, I will eat you. I have been patient for a long time. 153 Alvin. You'd better not annoy me. Do you believe I will eat you now? Oh, my God. The wizard in black covered his forehead and said, look at what you look like now, Evans, are you still the child I remembered? You have now become an evil snake demon, and you have been contaminated by that damn evil god. Do you still want to eat your friend? You are crazy. That's what you did. Evans curled up her body in pain. She screamed, it was you who killed her and you who drove her out of Hogwarts. If you hadn't forced me, I would never have done this. Chapter 199. You crazy dog. Evans roared angrily, but before he finished speaking, the wizard in black waved the short silver stick in his hand. Amidst a crisp knocking sound, the thick snake tail instantly withered and became limp. On the ground. This little punishment is a small lesson for you. The wizard stood up, threw the short stick to his companion, and then said to Evans, I don't care what ambitions you have, Evans. You should be grateful that your father is still alive. He died before you were born. There is nothing I can do to prevent this tragedy from happening. Your soul and your body belong to Hogwarts. This is what we all agreed upon, and we will give you enough power and wealth. But all this is based on your ability to take revenge on the basis of. The black-robed wizard bent down, patted Evans on the head, and whispered, we have only one goal, revenge. 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 Do you understand this word? Evans, we want to avenge your mother. And you only need to provide a little bit of power for this great goal in your field. We will prepare a more suitable body for you, and you will become the second mistress in the history of Hogwarts. This is your glory. The black-robe wizard said, this is also the price you have to pay, Evans. You are the pawn of our revenge, and our mission is yours. After speaking, the black-robed wizard raised his hand. On his wrist, a black, gem-like ring slowly rotated, emitting wisps of strange power, lingering in Evans' ears. Under the influence of that power, his voice became ethereal, echoing in her ears like a ghost, Evans, you should know where your future is and where your identity is. So, if you cooperate with us, we can reach a consensus. In this way, we can also send you back to your hometown as soon as possible. This is very important to us. There are benefits to all. I do not want. Evans screamed and struggled to resist, but those weird powers wrapped around her body. The more she struggled, the tighter those powers tightened. Evans, I advise you to be more obedient. The black-robed wizard frowned and said, if you continue to resist, then we can only imprison you and wait until your mother comes to pick you up. Don't hurt Evans. At this moment, the boy sitting on the sofa suddenly stood up and shouted in a childish voice, Evans is innocent. You bad guys. Let Evans go. UBD. Shut up. Evans screamed, and she glared at Alvin fiercely with her snake eyes, as if threatening him, if you keep yelling and screaming, I will eat you. I have been patient for a long time. 153 Alvin. You'd better not annoy me. Do you believe I will eat you now? Oh, my God. The wizard in black covered his forehead and said, look at what you look like now, Evans, are you still the child I remembered? You have now become an evil snake demon, and you have been contaminated by that damn evil god. Do you still want to eat your friend? You are crazy. That's what you did. Evans curled up her body in pain. She screamed, it was you who killed her and you who drove her out of Hogwarts. If you hadn't forced me, I would never have done this. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.